Hi, very good afternoon to you. It's Jim from Avstar. I'm wondering when NASA, NOAA and the European Space Agency are going to make an announcement, and there is one to be made. That's if they're paying attention to the magnetic North Pole at the moment. Over a 24-hour period, our Earth has a slight wobble. And of course, if you're tracking the magnetic North Pole like we do every 3 seconds, I'm going to show you later on the recent data that we pulled out of TriMag, which is over 300,000 readings since we last done an update on the magnetic North Pole, which will come later in this video. But if you track it like we do, you will see there is a wobble every 24 hours as the Earth rotates once in that period of time. And it's not a cylindrical, a spherical perfect circle. It wobbles in like an elliptic. And you know, we could take a reading at its furthest easterly position, and we could also take it at its more westerly position, and that's what we do. We take the most furthest westerly position, because as it's rotating the Earth every 24 hours, it's slowly but surely drifting westerly. Obviously, recently over the last few months, we noticed it had came to a halt. It also came to a halt back in February. And the reason why I'm saying, you know, what's going on with the mainstream organisations, why aren't they coming forward with the information that, you know, I'm about to deliver to you guys, is, you know, a bit of a mystery. Why won't they say it? I'll tell you what's happening. In that 24-hour drift period, we're noticing it expand. Yeah. So usually, let's say, you know, that drift circle would, you know, from its furthest east position to its furthest west position would be probably covering about 15 miles or so. But what we're noticing now is it expand. And that's why when you look at the TriMag data, you'll notice the bar where it usually reads, you know, between, well, we have popped a few times over the 14, but it usually drifts between, you know, 12 to 14. And what we've noticed is that expanding. So that bar, when you look at the TriMag's, you know, data on the website, you'll notice it's getting slightly wider over time. Sometimes it gets thinner, sometimes it gets wider, but more recently it's been getting wider. So that drift circle in a 24-hour period is expanding, and I think that that's due to a further weakening of the magnetosphere. So I think we are getting all that much more closer to starting to see things happen. And remember, we predicted this about 3 years ago, and I don't think we've been too far wrong, especially with the activity that we've recorded over the last, say, 10 months or so. This year has been very interesting. So we're going to do the latest magnetic pole positioning for you. We said we was going to do it on the 17th. We've left it a few more days. But you will see, nevertheless, it is still progressing westerly, and it has covered more distance than it ever has done in that period of time that we've recorded it. Again, we are getting closer to an event that is about to take place on our planet, and all the organisations are being quiet about it. You know, we record, as I said, every 3 seconds the latest position, and some have said to me, Gene, why bother recording at that level? And the reason why I said, because we don't want to miss a single thing, because we are probably going to come out at the end of this magnetic reversal, probably one of the only observatories that has recorded it at that resolution, and we will have all the data we've collected every single 3 seconds for the last 4.5 years, and you can imagine that runs into the thousands of millions of readings. So we have a very, very unique archive of data, which no other, and I believe no other organisation has in the world. We have the only land-based tracking system here in the UK that is recording the magnetic North Pole position for you guys. And you know what I can't believe? I can't believe that our funding is reducing and not increasing. You know, we're at a point in time where we promised, you know, we've made our predictions years ago, and now we're starting to see these predictions come true. You can't deny it, because if you've been following me for 4.5 years, or even the 10 years that we've been doing this, you know that we've had the data and we've made our predictions and forecasts based on that data. And you know, you can't just make stuff up like this. If you're going to predict a date in the future and it happens, then there is only one reason for that. It's not that we had a crystal ball here, we just had the data and we made forecasts on that data, and we have been right to this very moment. You know, and it's a real shame that, you know, a lot of people just take this for granted. Like, we will have 1,000 people view this video in the next 24 hours, and you know, sadly, 1 or maybe 2 people out of those 1,000 will make a donation to this information that you can't get anywhere else. It's sad. It's really sad. We don't get government funding. We've got no corporate support or backing. We just rely on you guys. And sometimes, I've got to say this, it feels like, you know, you guys let us down. Because if we had more funding, more people coming forward, we could do a lot more than what we're doing right now. And we should be, I know that, because of the times that we're in right now. We're starting to see all these things unfold. We're probably the most prolific observer of the magnetic North Pole on YouTube. And I don't know any other website like ours that not only provides you with, you know, monthly updates on the positioning of the magnetic North Pole, covers a lot of information regarding the magnetic North Pole, but we also cover a lot of other anomalies that are taking place with our Earth, such as earthquakes, volcanic activity, Arctic ice content and expansion. You know, we talk about these things, you know, regularly with you guys, openly as well. You know, you're not going to get another organisation talk about these things as open as what we do. And you certainly aren't being updated, you know, sometimes twice a month on the position of the magnetic North Pole. And, you know, for those people that don't contribute to this, I know what you're probably thinking, there's no need to, because it hasn't directly affected your life yet. Well, you're wrong. Because on the back of climate change, for whatever reason the mainstream organisations want to call it, and, you know, the causes of that are wrong, because it is everything down to the magnetic poles on our planet, and when they go through a migration, they do affect the climate. We've showed you how it affects the climate. It is no coincidence that the magnetic North Poles are in the vicinity of the rotational axis. It's no coincidence that the magnetic North Poles are in the Arctic regions of our planet. No coincidence whatsoever. All these 3 anomalies, magnetic poles, Arctic climate and rotational axis, are there part of the geo mechanics of our planet. That's why they're there, and not many people understand it fully. And there's a lot of work still to do on this. You know, we can understand our own planet a lot more, and, you know, with understanding our own planet a lot more, we can understand other planets. You know, why did Mars have a magnetic pole? It disappeared. So, you know, there's a lot of work still to be done. And, you know, it would be great if just a few more people would appreciate what we do here for the general wider public. You know, people from all over this world will view this video in the next 24 hours. Canada, Australia, Americas, Europe, England, all over the world, you name it, Africa. And it affects every single one of us, all 8 billion of us. So there is a link down there if you want to help support what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to keep you informed, and we can, to some degree, save you losing everything in your life financially, and we can also help, hopefully, prevent the loss of life to some people. I really mean that. So there's a link down there, and I suppose the only thing for me to do is show you where your magnetic North Pole is at this very moment. So let's get on with that. So I can tell you that the magnetic North Pole is still tracking west towards Russia, central Russia. We know why that is. I've told you many times why we're tracking towards Russia. It's because the intensity over Russia is winning the pole off Canada, because Canada's pole is weakening. And we have, in the last half a month, or at least from the 4th of the 11th to the 21st of the 11th, we've covered 1.64 miles. And that is nearly 3 times what mainstream organisations are telling people the pole is migrating at. And I was just looking at an article going back to 2019, and it said that the magnetic North Pole was migrating at about 40 miles per year. You can times that figure by 3, because that's the actual rate of what the magnetic North Pole is migrating now. It did about a month ago, come to a halt, like it did in February, come to a brief halt, but it is still, at this very moment, tracking west. Only thing that's changed that we've noticed, worth mentioning, is the 24-hour orbital movement that the pole makes, which is getting bigger. And I think the reason why that is because the magnetosphere, or the magneto that generates the poles inside of our core of our Earth, is weakening at this point. And that's why we're getting a bigger drift pattern over 24 hours. I think we're not far away from some serious movement on the pole. I really believe that. From what we're seeing, with the behaviour of the stops that we've seen, and then the further acceleration each time it's stopped, is when it's picked back up, it's gone that little bit more quicker. We have obviously, as you can see, surpassed the 40-degree mark, and I've had people, which I'm aware of anyhow, tell me that we are in that red zone now, between 40 and 45 degrees, where the last magnetic pole accelerated during its migration. It is in between those 2 points that we get this acceleration. We're just surpassed 40-degree mark. We're the only ones that are talking about this 40-degree mark. Okay, it's based on theory, but I don't think it's any surprise that this year, when we predicted we would be arriving at that mark, that now we start to see further activity with the magnetic North Poles. So 1.64 miles don't sound a lot, but I can tell you now, when we're talking about the geomagnetic poles that haven't migrated or gone for an excursion, let's say for 12,000 years, and then all of a sudden we're in a time period where this is happening, it's a big deal. And when you look at the last completed magnetic reversal being 780,000 years ago, it is a real big deal. And when we look at the record of reversals, it used to occur every 300,000 years. Only this time it has been the longest ever recorded time since a completed reversal has ever happened. We're over 500,000 years overdue a reversal. So I think it's going to be a real special event, and unlike anything we've ever witnessed, certainly in our history, or even in the paleomagnetic history, or the history of our Earth that we understand at this point. So there you go. The latitude is 81 degrees 50 hours 45 minutes 86 seconds north, by longitude of 114 degrees 41 hours 40 minutes 7 seconds east. If you're recording it on your own Google Maps, that's the latitude and longitude of the position of the magnetic North Pole for you. Guys, there is a link down there. Get behind us. Support the observatory. We're the only ones here doing this for you. You realise that, don't you? That should warrant a little bit of support. Okay. As always, guys, you take care of your loved ones. I'll say bye for now.